Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Culture Hour. My name is Shelley Smith, your host, and today we have two guests that I'm super excited about. We're going to talk about everything deaf, which is Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. So I can't wait to dive in and really get the juices in the conversation going about this. So we thank you for either tuning in and viewing us via YouTube or listening to us on iTunes or Stitcher. But today I've got Jon and Kristen, and I'm going to turn the mic over to them. I'm going to let them introduce themselves before we dive into deaf. So Jon, why don't you go first? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Shelley. Thanks for having us on the show. I definitely appreciate it. So how did I get into deaf and who am I? Why don't I go over those backwards. So Jon Macaskill, I've been in the Navy for about 22 years in different capacities. I won't go too far into that, currently serving up here in Norfolk, Virginia, close to you guys, up there on the peninsula in Virginia. And let's see, as far as the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, how did I get into that? Really the job that I'm working now, they kind of work in an innovation space, and innovation in the military is kind of difficult just because of the hierarchical structure. And some people mentioned the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum and how they help to empower and connect people that have visions that are innovative. And that sounded like it was interesting to me. I got loosely involved. They have a Slack workspace and various channels in the Slack space. And then they've got different chapters throughout the country. I got loosely involved online. And then Kristen and some other local folks here had the local chapter going, and it had kind of, I wouldn't say died, but it had waned. And Kristen, myself, and then one other were like, hey, let's light the fire. And we've got the fire going here in Hampton Roads area. So there's a lot of momentum behind the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. I'm sure we'll get into excruciating detail about what deaf is and what we do, but that's a quick how I got into it and who I am. So
beautiful.
Over to you, Kristen.
Yeah, Kristen.
Thanks for having me, Shelley, and hi, Jon. I'm Kristen Wheeler, and I just retired from the Navy after 20 years and 2 months this last June. So I'm on Adult 2.0 right now, going through a not crazy, but definitely an identity crisis still for what Adult 2.0 means. But when I was in the Navy, especially the last 3 years, I got to be a part of the Secretary of the Navy's Innovation Advisory Council, and got to go out to the Bay Area and see and experience all kinds of interesting things. And in 2015, a fellow NIACer and our boss, we went to the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum annual conference in Chicago. So that was probably like around Octoberish 2015. And I was blown away. I just loved the energy and the enthusiasm and the networks and the connections. And somebody had said that it felt less like a conference and more like a reunion of divergent and disruptive thinkers that really cared, and immediately felt like those were my tribe members. And then just kept getting in where I fit in. So there was a local chapter that was started in the Bay Area and participated in that. And then when I came out here, the day before I moved back out to the Hampton Roads area, there was a Deaf Agora meeting that I missed, I think a drink and think. And then I wanted to help, with more planning stuff, but as people get busy and things drop off, and tried to get 3 more deaf think and drinks together, but it couldn't get the traction. The thing about collaborating is you can't do it alone. So when Jon stepped up, my God, things just like the tsunami, right? We call Jon the tsunami. Things just really took hold, and we combined our networks and our efforts together and got a few more people involved and had over 100 people that came to the first event. So those are the things that change the landscape. So collaboration for the win.
Yes. Amazing. So I have one more introduction because he's like peeking over here. Here's my dog Polo. The viewers have never seen Polo before. I usually kick him out, but because he's there, I thought I would introduce him. So a little bit how the three of us got together for our listeners and viewers is Jon actually looked me up on LinkedIn, and we had some conversation around culture itself. And then out of those dynamics, he obviously gave me a little bit of the background of the deaf piece. And I was actually supposed to go to one of your first events, and I did not get back in town for that, and I missed it. And then he connected me with Kristen. And so I was very thrilled and honored to have attended the last one and did one of the mini session pieces. And I have to tell you, yeah, Jon is definitely a tsunami in a good way. And Kristen, yourself, and all the cohorts around it, the energy that was inside of the room and the conversations that are happening before the events and after the events are definitely dynamic. I know people that have taken and then were connected in the one that happened a couple of weeks ago, and the conversations are really going. And I love the power that you guys have brought in. So Jon, why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about, because you open up the sessions, you open up the drink events with a little bit of what it is. So why don't you tell us your opening spiel? And I think that will give the listeners a little bit of background if they don't know.
Sure. I'll give you what I give at those events. I don't know how good it is. Kristen, if I miss anything, please make sure you jump in and correct me or add to it.
You got it.
First off, I got to explain the tsunami piece. So one of my old bosses, he pulled me aside one day and he said, "Hey, Jon, you're really good at getting things done, but you also break a lot of things along the way. So you're kind of you're a tsunami. You're good at going in a direction towards the direction that I want you to go, but you break a lot of things." I said, "Well, hey, at least I'm getting things done." So I guess between Kristen and me, that's kind of my new nickname.
I like that. That's when did you say to him, "So are you giving me a compliment, or are you telling me to take a skill, or what exactly is that?" What kind of feedback was that?
Backhanded compliment, I guess.
Oh, powerful force.
So, yeah, so I guess the introduction to Defense Entrepreneurs Forum is that we inspire, connect, and empower. The whole idea behind the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum is to, again, break down the barriers of the hierarchy and allow people to collaborate in a rankless environment. So the reason I kind of grabbed my collar there is most of us are either in the military or connected loosely to the defense industry, and a lot of us wear a rank every day. And if you walk into a meeting and you are the lowest ranking person in a meeting, quite often you don't have the psychological safety that allows you to throw out new and innovative ideas. And quite often those new and innovative ideas come from the lowest ranks because they're the youngest people. They have they're creative. They haven't had their creative juices shut down yet. Or they, maybe some of these folks come from Silicon Valley and they've been working in innovative spaces already and they've got great ideas, and then they come into the military hierarchy and can get shut down. I think we're getting better at things, but the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum specifically, we meet out of uniform. Nobody calls anybody by rank, and we address tough problems. The one that you came to last week was the civ military divide, and we're trying to bridge that gap and explain from the military perspective how civilians view us and vice versa, or some of the tough questions that are out there. We do have a global network we've got local chapters in various parts of the globe, but it's global, and we do get together every year for a national conference. But the drinking things are the more often, or the events that happen more often locally. So what we did in January and February here was the drinking thing here at Norfolk's ODU Innovation Center, and then last week up in Hampton, and kind of the idea in the Hampton Roads Agora. So we call it an Agora instead of a chapter or anything. Just because that's the Greek way of calling a meeting area. and we want to be different. So, yeah, the Hampton Roads Agora. Right now, the idea is that we do a rotational basis between some of the Hampton Roads communities. So we've got Norfolk, we've got Suffolk, we've got obviously Virginia Beach, Hampton, Newport News, and figure out some type of rotation so that we can not only bridge the DoD and civilian divide, but also bridge some of the literal bridges that we have between those communities. Actually get those communities working together to better the Hampton Roads area and the Hampton Roads networks, get those silos broken down and start communicating between those silos. That's my quick, maybe, I don't know how long that was, 4-minute deaf elevator speech. I guess that's a pretty tall building if you're going for 4 minutes on the elevator, but anyhow, that's what I got.
No, that was good. Kristen, why don't you tell the viewers about some of the past couple of events, what your presenters talked about and the dynamics, because I know you did, I think, Scrum and some design thinking in the first one. So why don't you talk a little bit about that and maybe some of the wins or the takeaways or the idea thoughts behind it?
Oh, okay. So the one in January, we didn't want this just to be a networking event. We wanted it to be an experience where somebody walked away learning something new or being able to have a different type of conversation with somebody. So the formats include activities, right? I think of Step Brothers every time I think of activities. So the one in January, Jon has been using Scrum a lot at work. I have not used Scrum deliberately before. I think I probably used it not knowing what I was doing. But Scrum is really great for processes, to organize processes and tasks. And then design thinking is a great way to be able to rapidly iterate or create ideas through convergence and divergence, right? In a very highly collaborative environment, even the introverts will participate, which you don't ever get the introverts to throw out their stuff. So we wanted to introduce both of these tools into people's toolkits. So we had 2 sessions that went at the same time, design thinking and Scrum for 30 minutes, and then people had a break, and then those were offered again. So they could do both, have the opportunity to do both if they wanted, or they could network and eat good food and have a beer. But really great results that came out of, so I was in the design thinking room with Andreas Lazo and John Hawley. And we just did 4 questions. And the questions were designed to be able to get the juices flowing, but also for them to do a little bit of our homework to figure out customer discovery. Part of an entrepreneurial mindset is customer discovery. So why were these people here? What talents do they have? What assets do they have that they might want to bring to the table to future events? And we can always go back and parse through those to figure out more material and formats from being informed from the people that were actually there. So it served multiple purposes. And then the second one, we so going with the theme of crossing bridges or building bridges with the civilian and the military, not necessarily divide, but maybe misunderstandings that happen a lot. We had 2 activities. The first activity was curious and uncomfortable questions, where the civilians could ask the question from the military members, and the military members could ask questions from the civilians using sticky notes and throwing them up on a whiteboard, so nobody felt like if they asked a really uncomfortable question, they didn't have to actually ask it themselves. Somebody else would. They'd put it on the board and somebody else would read it, just to kind of eliminate some of the hesitation or insecurities that go along with those weird questions. And that really provided some engaging commentary from people.
It did.
A couple times it got a little passionate in there, which is always awesome. It can be, but it's uncomfortable, but learning to be comfortable with uncomfortable is the name of the game. And then the second activity we did was with you. where you broke everybody into groups of 4 to 5 people,
Yeah.
and went through a process of getting different types of things like staplers or
And pencils and rubber bands. Yeah, just miscellaneous office supplies.
miscellaneous objects, and what can be created out of these things. And it was like rapid thinking, and there were all these interesting insights that came out of that, based on team dynamics and the culture within the team.
Mm-hmm.
And you switched people around or did different little tweaks on there. Small tweaks ended up producing either big results or kind of shut stuff down too.
Yeah.
So it was a wildly illustrative experiment to really understand the power of culture.
Yeah.
You know.
Very good. And Jon, what do you guys have in store for upcoming future events? Or do you know yet?
I won't throw out any names. I don't want to ruin any surprises, but we're hoping to get some of the people from the Beltway, from the Beltway, the National Capital Region, down here.
Undersecretary of the Navy.
Yeah, we'll keep that quiet. But we're hoping to get them wrapped up into some of these events. They're definitely the individuals that we're hoping will be there are on the cutting edge of innovation within either the military or government.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have solid dates, but we're hoping to get tied into some of the local co-working spaces here. Specifically, the next one we're looking at doing is sometime in April.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do one at 1701 co-working space, kind of just get the word out about that space, and then again further connect the silos that are here in the community, to really connect the entrepreneurial ecosystem, not just the defense entrepreneurial side, but the full entrepreneurial ecosystem, and really get Hampton Roads on the map.
Yeah, it's really interesting how siloed every industry and entity and location is. I'll go back to my days in corporate America, back in my hotel days 10 years ago. And I thought that was the only thing that I knew, and I lived and breathed. And when I came out of that, I felt like I was an ostrich with my head in the sand, because I was like, oh my God, there's like other things outside of the world of hotels. And so, obviously over the last 10 years of literally working with any sort of trade, as well as private, nonprofit, public, and a military side, it's so interesting that literally every single person, branch, entity has their heads in the sand like ostriches, because we get, so we live and breathe so much of one cup of Kool-Aid. And that ends up shutting us down. And we end up being so paralyzed with what we think we know to be true and what we think we know to be accurate, that it really stifles the innovation inside of any workplace culture. So I love these kind of conversations. And I think that these opportunities are definitely, kind of across the board. What is the vision from either one of you, or if you both want to weigh in? What's the vision of the deaf community itself, or what is it that the two of you are hoping to get out of it personally, professionally? And we are in the community of Hampton Roads, but I know that listeners are we've got a couple of folks that, just so you guys know, that are always listening from on replay, of course. We've got one that's specifically in Strasbourg, France, that is always listening in, and then one from Stockholm. So regardless, the lessons will be learned nationally and internationally. But what is it you guys are looking to get out of this? Who wants to go first?
Jon.
All right, I'll go first.
You're voluntold.
Yes, ma'am. So really, what we're hoping to do, and I think we've covered this lightly, but the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, again, is just to the three tenets of DEF are to inspire, connect, and empower. Mm-hmm. So inspire people who may not think that they are people who can make differences. So, again, we touched on the lower ranking folks in the military or connected to the defense industry. They may have the great ideas, but they don't know how to bring them to bear. So we inspire them by having an organization that they can bring those ideas out in a psychologically safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
We connect, obviously, by having the drink and thanks, by having the national events. That's how we can connect those people and give them that forum.
Mm-hmm.
And then empower by leveraging some of the connections that either the higher ranking people in the organization have, or some of the people in the national beltway they may have. We can bring some of those ideas to fruition. That's kind of the long-term goal of DEF writ large. As far as DEF Hampton Roads, the Agora that we have here, again, we're just trying to tie the greater military community. I mean, it's one of the most dense military communities in the world, tying them to the community on the outside, and then leveraging those relationships again to bring ideas to fruition to make both better. That's that, I believe, is the kind of the Hampton Roads Agora goal. We don't want it to just become a networking event. I mean, networking is great, absolutely nothing against it, but we want to network and then also inspire and really empower. So the connection's a big piece of it, but the inspiring and empowering, I think, is the piece where DEF really makes its money. That's my 2 cents as far as what Hampton Roads is. The goal is for Hampton Roads Agora. What do I hope to get out of it personally? I just like connecting people, connecting dots, and ultimately making things, organizations, and communities better because of those connections. So it kind of feels like a natural thing for me to be a part of. I don't think that I have any ulterior motive.
That's a good motive. Connecting in itself is a great motive. So let it be.
Yeah, I like to think that it's completely altruistic. I mean, I do feel good when I can say, hey, I helped to make that connection. So there's a little bit of, I guess, selfishness there, but it's the fact that connection was made, and those two people or those two organizations are better because of that connection. That's really all I like to get out of it personally.
No, it's connecting with intentionality of truly connecting, I think, is definitely a good thing. And Kristen, I want to hear from you too, but I do want to make sure that just as an outsider looking in and participating, I think people did gravitate towards, oh, this is another networking drink thing simply by title. But I want to really highlight the think part of it. I loved that so much, the intentionality of the activity with the white space in order to be able to connect and continue the conversation. I love that combination, and you guys do that really, really well. So I want to emphasize there was a lot more thinking than drinking going on for sure. So Kristen, what are your thoughts on
that? John. High five. And Shelley. So when you talked about like the long-term vision of Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, the Hampton Roads Agora, I think it's interesting to note that, and you brought up your international partners, that there's an Australian Agora for Deaf.
Nice.
And I got to meet them in 2017. Like 4 of their Agora members came out to the national conference, and it was so interesting to hear how they're using it.
Similar or different?
Both. I mean, both. The model of having an open forum to be able to connect, like junior enlisted with defense contractor conversation, like that doesn't happen often, if at all. And DEF is able to provide that kind of an opportunity for those conversations to be able to happen. And then also the think piece, like filling up the toolkit with different types of things to help with organizational culture. One of the things that when I was on the Navy Innovation Advisory Council that we focused heavily on was culture. It's easy to throw tech at a problem, but it won't stick if the culture is not there. Yeah. So that piece is definitely like across the board. I think every single DEF Agora is part of the brand where culture matters, right?
Yeah.
So And the connection piece, I think, is also really, really important to note. So someplace here in Hampton Roads where we talked about all these different silos.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what else is out there. I'm sure there's other things that are happening, just haven't found out about them yet.
Mm-hmm.
But that are connecting, the civilian and the military together, but also connecting military and military together, because I don't know where else Air Force and Navy are working together in Hampton Roads.
Exactly.
And then also civilian and civilian side, so having, somebody from the Hampton Roads Military Advisory Council with a chamber member, like those things are important to have.
Yeah.
And one of the big topics always here for the local and the larger economy is the defense industry.
Absolutely.
As an industrial common, to be able to have more startups, more activity around those things. So DEF provides that place for those connections to be able to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And by adding the culture piece in there with the activities, it kind of seals it together in a more meaningful, engaging way. Like meaningful engagement is the name of the game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. I was just talking about the Chamber of Commerce. The president and CEO of the Peninsula Chamber, Bob McKenna, of course, was there and supported it physically and the food financially, which is yummy.
Mm-hmm.
We just had a conversation. He is passionate about many things, but obviously this very topic is one thing he's passionate about. And we just had a conversation a little while ago about starting a podcast to better focus and spotlight the very things that you just talked about and more. So there's so many amazing things that are happening inside of Hampton Roads, period, that people just don't know about. So figuring out a way to be able to pull that out when we have so much knowledge. It's almost like having the big IKEA box delivered to your house, and there's all these amazing pieces inside of it. And for us, all these amazing talents. But if you don't know how to put it all together, it like falls apart.
Yeah.
Or it's put together temporarily until you go try to use it, and then
Or it takes way too long to put together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that there is a lack of collaboration through all of those entities and sharing best practices. And I love the energy behind this. And I want to personally thank you guys for bringing me in. Obviously, for Jon, for you tapping me on the shoulder to begin with, and being introduced to you, Kristen, and the rest of the group. So it's really amazing thing that you guys are doing. So I'm gonna put a wrap on this. And if each of you could tell me, or tell the viewers, the best way, the best way to find the information on DEF. I know that the events are on Eventbrite, but the best way, and maybe a why. Why should they do it? Can
I get this one?
Oh, she's taking this one first.
Follow Jon Macaskill on LinkedIn.
He truly is a connector, people. I have to tell you.
Follow him.
I thought I was the queen of connections. You're the king, because I'm not going to give up my throne, but I'll share it. He definitely
both of you guys.
Crazy connecting.
Well, yeah, I will give a plug to LinkedIn, and the power of LinkedIn is incredible. I mean, once you actually start using it correctly, I mean, you link up with people that you would never normally meet. Like Shelly, you and I never would have met if I hadn't been doing some scouring just on specifically. I was looking for culture change.
John and I, we would have never met. We met as well.
Yeah,
Very cool.
So that's one call. I mean, and then talking about Scrum and mindfulness and design thinking and things like that. I have met more people. I mean, I'm good friends. I've become really good friends with a guy in Pittsburgh, John Davis, who's an agile Scrum master, and I've never actually met him in person. And he's just an incredible guy. I mean, we speak about all sorts of things on the phone. I mean, from spirituality to agile. Anyway, I could go down that road for a while, but the way to get in touch with DEF is there's a website, defenseentrepreneurs.org. You leave the forum off, defenseentrepreneurs.org. That's where you can find out more and sign up. And then we have a running Slack workspace that has all the different channels, from local Agora information to the different design thinkings, books that people are reading. It's really fascinating workspace to be in, and I mean, you could lose a lot of time in there. You also learn a lot.
It's addictive.
Rabbit hole.
So other than going to downloading the Slack app, because a lot of people don't use that, what is the group name that you guys have for this?
On Slack?
Yeah.
So you get invited to that particular workspace. It's just
Okay.
DEF, but you can't get into it unless you
Without
go
an
to the website,
Okay.
defenseentrepreneurs.org, and then you get an invitation sent to you from one of our main players on the national leadership team. He'll send that, and then once you've got that, you can get into the Slack workspace.
Okay.
But then there's also, the local LinkedIn Defense Entrepreneurs Forum sites, and then each Agora has a Facebook for putting up events and things like that as well.
There's a Deaf Hampton Roads Twitter account, but nobody knows who has access to it, so don't use it.
Don't use it.
Don't use the Twitter. Nobody
I was
knows
like,
how to
oh.
get in there. Nobody knows what. Don't use it.
Okay. What's your Facebook then? What's your Facebook group page? Is it a page or is it a group page? Is it private? Is it?
It is a group page. I don't believe it's private,
Okay.
and it's just the particular one is Deaf Hampton Roads. I think I don't have it up in front of me, but I'm pretty
Okay.
sure just if you get on Facebook, look up Deaf Hampton Roads, our particular Agora will show up on there, and you do not have to be an official Deaf member, which doesn't cost anything, by the way. You just get on the website and log in, and then you're a member. But yeah, that's probably the few ways to get a hold of us. And then if you're local, attend one of our drinking things and let's meet.
Can I give a plug real quick?
Yes.
If you're watching this and you'd like to be a sponsor, contact Jon Macaskill.
Wait. Macaskill. Is that right? Okay.
And
no H.
Jon. Yeah.
so it is Deaf is a 501c3, so it is the tax write-off. So any restaurants or anything out there that would like to get their name out to 100 plus really happy people at one time, it's a good opportunity to get some really great exposure and support a really worthy cause.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right.
Good plug.
It was a good plug, and it was good to clarify that it is a nonprofit. And to join is to free too. So, and again, I want to underline the word think. So, and meet great people. And I think everybody is a group of influencers. So there's definitely a huge amount of influencers that come. Polo's not there. So for those of you watching. So I know, right? We need to have an open forum for all of our pets.
It's
So
inclusive.
yeah, exactly. So thank you both to Kristen and Jon today for joining us and talking about Deaf and the wonderful work that the two of you are doing and bringing that back alive in the Hampton Roads, Virginia community. So I appreciate you. And for those of you who are listening or watching the replay, by all means, make sure that you reach out to Kristen Wheeler on LinkedIn, as well as Jon, and that's Jon. I'm going to spell yours because yours is unique. Jon, and then last name is Macaskill. So you can reach out to either one of them, and they'll be more than happy to further connect you and to answer any questions in regards to Deaf specifically as well. So again, my name is Shelley Smith. I so appreciate you listening, watching, sharing, viewing, sending in questions, recommending folks for me to have on. You know that I'm always open and inspired by anyone who's doing certainly anything innovative and collaborative and intentional inside of workplace culture. If you want to know more about becoming a culture curator, professional certification, hit me up on my website at premierreport.com, or you can contact me on email, shelley@premierreport.com. You can also get a culture inquiry done in your organization and find out what's going on if you're a hot mess and toxic, somewhere in between, or if you are rocking it out and you are a best place to work, and I can bet your bottom dollar I can help you level up too. And then finally, you can also become a member. You can become a member of the Culture Curators in Conversation and get a ton of information and webinars and a community of like-minded people. So I thank you. I appreciate you. Remember, culture matters.